What's up, guys? I'm here today replacing the front brakes, pads, and rotors, and repacking my wheel bearings and replacing the wheel seal. Just going to walk through a few details. This isn't a step-by-step, but it's hopefully going to illustrate some of the general ideas in doing this job if you haven't done it before. Basically, I removed the hub, the brake calipers hanging up, and no tension on the brake line, and basically clean the hub up, remove the old rotor, reinstall the new rotor. I haven't brake cleaned this yet. Clean the bolts, and basically the bolts are nice and clean. I recommend using some anti-seize on those bolts because over time these do tend to get pretty stout, stuck in there good. I use my air compressor with my 1/2-inch impact to break those loose. The torque setting on those per the Chiltons is 32 to 42 foot-pounds. I set mine at 35. Not too difficult to do. You can just hold the rotor, torque wrench, no problem. Basically, once you go to put your rear bearing in first, and you go to install your wheel seal, I recommend running a thin bead of wheel bearing grease on that. Place it on top here. I use a piece of wood, not this particular one, but just as an illustration, and I'll take and lay that piece of wood over so that it covers the entire seal. Take your hammer and just lightly tap it around, and you want to pick the wood up and check to make sure that the seal is seating evenly all the way around. You don't want it to kick one way or the other, so that way it doesn't damage your seal. Even though they're not expensive, it's the point that you don't want to make a second trip. Okay, I've already repacked my bearings, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration of that, so bear with me for a second here so I can flip the camera around so you can see what I'm going to show you. Okay, here is my wheel bearing packer from Napa. There's the part number. It may be a little different. It's like 18 bucks. Basically, let me scroll up here a little bit. It's a plunger style. Here you fill this full of grease. Sorry, as you can see here, you just fill it full of grease. Then what you do is take and place that on top. Let me scroll down here. Hopefully this will be a good enough illustration so you can see what it'll do. But as you squeeze it, it forces the grease out of the bearing. As you can see, hopefully this is a good illustration. It's kind of hard for me to do this and illustrate it at the same time, keeping the camera dialed in there. But you can see the bearing is slap full of grease, which is excellent. And basically this will push all the old grease out, obviously, and it just, in my opinion, saves a lot of time. I know I've hand packed them for years. I've used Ziploc bags, and they're both adequate, but I found that this is just a really handy tool, and it clearly lubricates the bearing so that you get adequate grease in it, and there's no question. So let me disconnect the camera here from the base. I'm going to walk up to the front of the truck to go through some brief details, and we'll finish up here. Okay, go up here to the front, and I might want to say that the bolt that goes to the rotor, to the hub, that holds the hub on there, is a 14mm, just in case you want to know. As you can see here, nice clean spindle. Everything's all cleaned up. Basically, on your holding bracket here, as you can see, Mazda has a unique feature. The top side of your holding bracket actually has the slide pin made onto the bracket. You do not want these to seize up because they are a beast to remove. Basically, the bolts that hold this bracket on here, the torque setting on those is 65 to 80 foot-pounds. I generally set mine somewhere in between that. I picked 70 on the opposing side. Obviously I'm on the right side today. Your single caliper bolt goes in the bottom. This is torqued at 31 to 41 foot-pounds, and your axle nut, which holds the entire hub on, you set that to 22 2 foot-pounds, and that's basically just so that you seat your bearings and hub, and then you can rotate that back off 1.5 to 1 3/4 turns. I generally just do it by feel, just as long as I can rotate that hub with ease and it's not dragging or seem too tight. It's just something, that's the way I've done it for years, so everybody's a little different on it. Basically, the caliper bolt for the lower, this 14 millimeter, your holding bracket bolts, those are 21 millimeter, and basically your axle nut is a 23 millimeter. And pretty much other than that, I recommend some Permatex Ultra Disc Brake Caliper Lube. Put that on your slide pins, that way they don't seize up. And on my grease cap, what I do, since these tend to leak a lot for some reason, I basically just get my grease cap really clean, and then what I do is use some of this fabulous product right here, the Right Stuff. It sets up super fast, and it just takes a little bit running around that. Once you go to set your cap on, tap your cap onto the hub, and within 5 minutes it's set up, and it cures within an hour. And normally that has prevented me from having leaky wheel bearing grease all over the front of my hub. I'm sure if some of you have seen that, it's a typical issue, but there are ways to avoid that problem. So hopefully this has been informative, and if I got anything backwards, super duper. So thanks a lot, and have a good day.